Hey everyone, it's Dr. Ramani. Welcome back to this YouTube channel on narcissism and healing from narcissistic relationships and understanding narcissistic relationship. Let's talk about the eternal April Fool's joke that happens in the narcissistic relationship. So by the time you see this video, April Fool's Day will have passed because it was actually on April Fool's Day that I thought of this video. On the morning of April Fool's Day, someone asked me, are you going to play a joke on your followers, on your online community? I hadn't really thought of it. I didn't even register it was April Fool's Day. And then I looked at them and I said, strong no. And they said, why? Why is that? And it dawned on me, obviously I knew it all along, but because mean-spirited practical jokes, just for the sake of reaction and humiliation, to me that's the bread and butter of the narcissistic relationship, right? Remember, a person who's in a narcissistic relationship is psychologically exhausted, that chronic hypervigilance takes a real toll on you, and you can no longer be your true self. So there's also an exhaustion around having to be someone else. When we are in survival mode like this, our abstraction brain, our executive functioning, our frontal systems functioning, it's preoccupied, right? And doing something like taking a joke and running with the humor of it is sometimes a very higher order executive function. And when we're in a survival mode, which we are in survival mode constantly when we're around the narcissistic person, we hear things literally. We kind of have to. And that extra bit of effort to hear what they are saying in a funny or ironic or sarcastic way, that's not always on board when we're trying to survive in these relationships. So we don't hear it as funny. So the narcissistic person or people make a joke at our expense. We don't get it. We look foolish. They laugh. And we may either look sad or frustrated or angry. And then we're told that we are bitter or angry or not fun or too sensitive and can't take a joke. Now, of course, the hypocrisy of all of this is that if you were trying to pull a funny prank on a person with a narcissistic personality, forget about it. They would fall into a rage and then go for the jugular and make mean-spirited comments to you that can never be unsaid or undone, basically to put you in your place. So this process of pulling a joke on someone and then mocking them for being too sensitive or too serious or whatever, for not going with it, is all part of a larger gaslighting maneuver of breaking someone down. Because not every joke is funny, especially when you are in survival mode, which most people in these relationships are. So over and over again, I've said this, that narcissistic relationships are asymmetric relationships. The narcissistic person is largely motivated by power and control, and will do what they need to do to maintain that power and control. So when the joke is perpetrated by the more powerful person in a relationship, it is more destabilizing because often there is no option but to just go with it. And of course, that fortifies their power. When jokes are perpetrated by people who are equally powered, it has a different feel. But a joke that's perpetrated by someone who already holds more power in a situation is more likely to be experienced and felt as a humiliation. And humiliation is a power tactic, and narcissistic people use it and use it often. So when you put all of that together, the asymmetry of these relationships, the fact that you are in survival mode, and since you are always trying to make sense of what they are saying, and half of what comes out of a narcissistic person's mouth is absurd, you may also be hypervigilant, not knowing whether or not something is a joke or not, because heaven forbid you treat something like a joke that isn't a joke. Like they're going on some bizarre, grandiose tear or having a reactive tantrum and you start to laugh, but find out that that wasn't meant to be funny, and you find that out because they rage at you. Over time in these relationships, you literally no longer know how to react to anything, or at least react to anything without them completely losing it. But if the joke is cruel enough at your expense and you have a strong reaction, they will definitely mock, shame, and pathologize your reaction. This kind of joking and ribbing especially when a narcissistic person is doing it, can also result in public shaming and humiliation, which can also create more social anxiety and withdrawal, and maybe even you feeling like you're holding back socially, which can then subsequently block you from the supports that you desperately need to heal. So those little jokes become a big problem. You may also recall that if you originated from a narcissistic family system, that jokes and pranks and that kind of jokey ribbing kind of thing were part of how the family communicated with each other, with the advantage often geared toward the narcissistic parent or the golden child in some cases. The narcissistic parent may have framed all this sort of joking and tricks as making you thicker skinned, or you needing to learn to survive in a dog-eat-dog world, or being stronger, or learning to hang, or however they framed it. But ultimately it was hazing, and this hazing ritual actually may have simply left you feeling shamed, silenced, and psychologically unsafe. And it allowed the triangulated power imbalances to sustain in the system. Keep in mind, too, that pranks at all levels are a central pillar of bullying. Drawing a person into a trap and then mocking them when it happens. I mean, isn't that what that whole Stephen King book and movie Carrie was about? Except she definitely exacted next level revenge on her abusers. Stephen King had clearly tapped into sort of the kind of a horror, emotionally abused thing in a very unsettling way there, but that's really what that was. Not funny. The narcissistic person's jokes and gags and pranks and humiliation may make you feel small, because then they get to feel big. Most behaviors for a narcissistic person are compensatory. It's always a counterweight to their inner insecurity. But they also have the option of going to get some therapy. Turning you into their punchline doesn't qualify as their therapy, and it's not good for you. I have to tell you, after years and years of not only doing this work, but experiencing these relationships, I don't actually really love April Fool's gags or practical jokes. In my life, I've definitely been on the wrong end of the humiliation more often than not. Experienced that sense of being shamed publicly. Even when I was a kid, I remember adults doing this to me, and I still can feel in my body how foolish I felt when those adults did that to me. And I ruminated about it for a long time, and I thought about this video, it brought it back to me. And I was told to stop being so serious, and I would actually feel sick when I saw jokes happen to other people. Remember what one of the key narcissism management techniques is. It's disengagement. Now, sadly, we have to turn off normative reactions to their behavior so we can slowly take our power back, but not reacting and stepping away from their power-grabbing so-called jokes is often the only path forward. Yes, they will call you humorless and cold and a dud, but maybe that's the best outcome because it may make you a far less interesting target so that they can go find another unfortunate one. Listen, if a prank or a joke is truly harmless and makes people laugh, listen, I love me a prank. Like when I see someone like, I don't know, like takes a street sign and paints it in a way so it looks like something silly. It's a prank for everyone to get a laugh, great. But when it devolves into not just a prank but mockery, not okay. And in that case, let's be honest, every damn day in a narcissistic relationship feels like April Fool's Day. Thanks again.